Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Cyber Friday Foundation Fridays. I appreciate everybody that is joining live. Those of you that are watching the recording, whether it's on LinkedIn Live or Captain Hyperscaler's YouTube channel or the Cyber Back to School YouTube channel, thank you very much. I have the link to Cyber Back to School if you are following along, and if you're on LinkedIn Live or on my my Captain Hyperscaler YouTube channel, please go to cyberback2school.com. We are doing a month-long event for October for Cyber Awareness Month. So a lot of great sessions. Some of my recorded sessions are linked in the schedule, as well as these Cyber Foundation Fridays, as well as other sessions from other members of the community, of the cybersecurity community. A lot of Microsoft MVPs. I believe I have some AWS community builders on there as well as just great cyber professionals that work within cloud technologies and all of that. So thank you very much for supporting that, and thank you to all the presenters that have provided sessions. So I appreciate that. So let's get into today's Cyber Foundation Friday topic. Today's topic is how cyber resilient is your organization. So we're going to talk about building cyber resilience within your organization, and we're going to talk primarily around the implementation tiers that are addressed in the NIST cybersecurity framework, which are very helpful in terms of building cyber resilience and understanding where you lie within your organization. I don't think we're gonna go probably a little bit shorter today than some of these Cyber Foundation Fridays have been. I don't want them to be so much that they're overwhelming to you. I want them to be, I have them scheduled for 2 hour time frames just in case I go a little bit long, but sometimes I do go a little bit short. Most of the times I do fall on the going a little bit long aspect of things though. But we'll address those as we go. So if this is the first session that you have attended for Cyber Foundation Fridays, I am Dwayne Natwick. I am an Accolade and a APMG accredited SOCA trainer. I also do ISC2 training, Microsoft training, EC Council training, as well as others. But definitely a lot. I've been doing a lot of Accolade training. I am the owner of Captain Hyperscaler. So if you aren't familiar with Captain Hyperscaler, we are a training organization that provides virtual instructor-led training to everybody. And we've been doing a lot of Accolade training lately because one of the things that we do here at Captain Hyperscaler is we have fun with the kind of superhero aspect of Captain Hyperscaler. And instead of talking about training plans, we talk about skilling you up like a superhero. And what superhero doesn't need an origin story? So building on the foundations and the practitioner aspect of cybersecurity, risk management, AI security are all things that we find important within the cybersecurity environment, and therefore, and we have partnered with Accolade as our foundational origin story for skilling you up like a superhero. From there, you can go into other trainings that we have. I have a great trainer that does ITIL training foundations, as well as she's on her way to becoming an ITIL master trainer. So you can learn about proper service processes and processes and procedures. Really builds a good foundational standard within your organization, as well as then a SOCA training, which SOCA, we provide CRISC, CISM, CISA, as well as CGEIT training at Captain Hyperscaler. So we are APMG accredited and APMG training organization, as well as I'm an APMG instructor for SOCA as well. So if you're looking for cybersecurity process improvement, and service improvement training, as well as security auditing, governance, risk, compliance, and information security management training, we are the place. Captain Hyperscaler is the place that you can go to get those virtual instructor led trainings. So definitely check us out. Check out our website. It is listed here on this slide. As well as if you should be able to find us as well on LinkedIn. We have our own LinkedIn page, and you can go through also my page to do that as well. So let's get into the agenda for today. We are going to talk about what is cyber resilience. We hit on that a little bit and covered that a little bit in the first one of these that we did 4 weeks ago. So I thought it would be important to readdress that a little bit. How do I determine my cyber maturity as an organization? Where do we fall, and then how do I continue then to evaluate and assess my organization? And then finally, we'll mention tailoring a profile to get yourself to a newer tier. There is going to be a session a little bit more on profiles later on, but I'm not going to cover that here today. So what is cyber resilience first and foremost? We talked about this, like I said, we talked about the NIST cybersecurity framework, which is a framework created by the U.S. government. No, it is U.S. based. It is U.S. based. It's government based, but it has been in the 2.0 update. It is not as specific as it previously was around the U.S. government and critical infrastructure systems. It has become a very helpful framework for building cyber resilience across any private industry, private sector, and business around the world. The information that falls within the cybersecurity framework plays to any organization that, because what it all has to do with is identifying and handling risk. And so, and then governing over that, obviously. And govern is kind of the main aspect of the wheel here in the graphic that was added to in the 2.0, which we've seen this happen a lot. And I mentioned this a little bit in the risk management framework discussion that we had a couple weeks ago, where the risk management framework, when it went to its revision 2, put in the prepare phase to the risk management framework, which took a lot of tasks that were in all the other phases and put them into this prepare, the things you need to do to beforehand. Govern's very similar. It took it didn't necessarily recreate what the framework was, or what the category or the subcategories and tasks were, or outcomes were within the framework previously. It just moved some of them out of identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, and put them into govern, because a lot of that, some of that we have to think about beforehand, as well as it goes along with the continuous improvement aspect of really what goes into being a cyber resilient organization, which we'll talk about when we get into those tiers. So cyber resilience, when we say cyber resilience, we're taking those proactive steps, and the govern aspect of things is really being proactive, identifying, preparing, understanding what our organization is like, and how we handle risks is going to be very important, and a very important step to building cyber resilience. And cyber resilience is definitely, if we're building cyber resilience and we are a cyber resilient organization, we should have something we should be very proactive. We should be very repeatable in what we do, and what we do in terms of our measures to handle incidents, how we address business continuity. All of those things go into our cyber resilience aspect of things. And the NIST cyber security framework provides that guidance towards cyber resilience. It provides, it's a public document. That's the important thing to state. Anytime I mention NIST, NIST very much has become global in its manner and global in its focus, not necessarily in its focus, but in its use, because it now looks at the everybody looks at NIST as a reputable source for frameworks and for guidance and for control information, depending on what document you're looking at, because you can go to nist.gov and be able to access that information. And that's really a key aspect to it all, is being able to get access to the information and at little or no cost. And nist.gov provides no cost access to all of these documents, where other frameworks, other guides, there is a fee to that, and sometimes those fees are very large. Um, we we went through the NIST cybersecurity framework. Like I said, 4 weeks ago, there's a video out there that you can find around that I go through very quickly all of these functions and categories and subcategories at a high level. Again, later on this month, I think the last week of October, I will be doing the Accolade cyber cybersecurity fundament or cyber resilience fundamentals course, which covers all of this in great detail. So I welcome you to go out and you can find some posts that I've made. I'm offering a special discount price on that course for Cyber Awareness Month at $200 to attend my 1 day course broken out into 3 3-hour sessions. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Like I said, I think it's the 29th, 30th, and 31st of October from 8 to 11 a.m. United States Eastern Time, which equates to 1 to 4 p.m. UTC. So again, reach out to me on social media. I can give you a link to pay for that course and register. I will send you then the Teams link and get you on your way to attending that course here later this month. But the NIST cybersecurity framework, what it really does is it's helping to help us understand our security posture and where we want to go. And that's really what, when we talk about the implementation tiers, when we talk about maturity level, that's really what we're doing at this point is understanding and identifying what opportunities we have for improvement and what progress we have to in making those improvements. Okay, and then the last piece is the communication. And we're not going to talk so much about necessarily the communication aspect of things. That's really building your risk management action plan. But these are all areas of interest that we want to make sure we are covering appropriately. Okay, and so we have a lot of we have the core framework. We have a lot of implementation guidance that we can get out of this framework. And as I stated when I was talking about when we discussed the framework in our first episode of Cyber Foundation Fridays. This document is only 30 to 40 pages long, so it's very digestible, very easy to consume and gain information out of. So we can also use then other documents of reference out of that, the risk management framework, the 800-53. We can use outside documentation. There's the common controls matrix that if you're using cloud solutions, you can utilize those documents within within the Cloud Security Alliance. We've got the CIS documentation. You got ISO 27001, 27002 if you have access to that. But ultimately, what we gain out of even just starting with using the NIST cybersecurity framework is getting a level of understanding of what risks we have within our organization and prioritizing those risks appropriately, based on not just the impact and likelihood of that risk, but also the resources and finance, the both personnel and financial resources we have to address those risks also. So it's really going through the cybersecurity framework and building that and going through the risk management action plan is very helpful to to creating that prioritized list. Doing a quick, doing a fairly in-depth yet detailed risk analysis in a short period of time. It's like a 30-day process. We'll talk. What I'll probably do is I'm going to adjust the next uh, the next cyber resilience uh, discussion to be much more around risk management action planning and how that looks, because this is really going to kind of take us to that anyway logically. So when you think about that and you think about what we need to do, we're building a plan, we're building an action plan, is what building cyber resilience and building those tiers. So we need to then determine what our cyber maturity is. And so to determine that cyber maturity, we do that with our framework and our implementation tiers. And we'll just call those tiers here going forward. But these represent how effective we are in implementing cybersecurity practices. Okay, so each of these tiers tell us our maturity level and what level of cyber resilience we have within our organization. And you can see in the graphic, we have in those four tiers, we kind of have little names to that. We have naming to them. We have partial, we have risk informed, we have repeatable, and then we have adaptive. And it's important as an organization then to decide where we want to go and what we want to do. What level do of cyber resilience do we want to have within our organization? Hopefully, we're beyond the partial, but it doesn't. The cybersecurity. One of the things that I mentioned previously in the previous session around cyber resilience and the cybersecurity framework is the cybersecurity framework is not mandating or dictating anything to you. It is a framework, and it can be flexible to what your needs are. And that's really what the case is here is what is our needs, what is going to address our need for cyber resilience that fits within our risk culture and our risk tolerance levels. And do we want to improve? Some organizations may not want to improve. Hopefully, I'm of the cup is half full optimistic aspect of things. Hopefully everybody wants to improve. Maybe in some ways an organization feels they don't have the resources and the financial or otherwise to improve. But what the cybersecurity framework does is it helps us to determine whether we do or don't, and can give us ideas and approaches that will help get us there if we want to. So let's go through each one of these a little bit, and start with tier one, being obviously the it's a stepping stone, as the graphic shows. We want to get to tier four. Ultimately, could be our goal. May or may not be. We may want to stop at tier three. We'll talk about that when we'll cross that bridge or that stair step when we get to it. But tier one is really the starting point. If this is labeled a partial organization, and many organizations are going to fall into this particular area if they don't have any specific risk management strategy. If they're handling risks or they're handling incidents very ad hoc, they don't even have an incident response plan. That would be a partial organization. They're very ineffective in how they handle risk methods. They're very reactive to everything. There is where this is where really any organization really starts out. unless they're really starting, and jumping right into, being a risk aware, and having that risk aware culture is first and foremost the most important thing to our organization. You're probably going to, in most cases, start out here. Hopefully this isn't the end all state that you want to be. If you feel that your posture, risk posture and security posture is at this partial tier where, that we don't have anything systematic in place, there's no processes and procedures or programs, and we're really unresponsive, people aren't participating or reporting potential risks and things of that nature, you probably don't want to be there. If you're a security professional and you find that your company is in this place and in this tier, and doesn't want to move away from this tier, you might be in the wrong organization, because you're going to be fighting an uphill battle over and over and over again. So keep that in mind as you think through each of these tiers and what they represent, and think about your own organization, or organizations that you work with, in how we can take them even further. Tier 2, this is risk informed. This probably a good portion of organizations are at least at this level. You may have some processes in place. Maybe you've got an incident response plan that you somewhat follow, but maybe you don't have business continuity planning in place. You don't have disaster recovery in place, but that we have room for improvement. There's an acknowledgement in tier 2 that that we understand risk is there. We've got risk. We may even have risk documented. We may have a risk register in place. It's just there's some very incomplete participation. We're not getting incidents reported. Maybe we don't have risk awareness programs in place and things like that with our organization, with our employees. So we have we're still developing things. We're still formalizing some policies and procedures to be much more proactive. And that's really what comes down to here. So you're better off than you are at tier 1, because tier 1's very reactive. You're a little bit more proactive here because you're informed, you understand risk. Like I said, at executive level and IT level and all of that, you probably have a risk register, or you're addressing, or you understand certain risks, but you don't have the full repeatable programs and processes in place. They're still infancy. They're still being developed. There's maybe they're not tested, but we're getting there. And so I would say at least if not all security organizations are here, but whether the organization's bought into it or not is where we need to get to. That's kind of where we fall within that tier 1 and tier 2. At the tier 2, we kind of have the organization somewhat bought in, but maybe they're not loosening the purse strings quite enough to get the financing necessary to to put certain policies and procedures in place, and certain controls in place to better our risk posture. Maybe they're not ready quite to invest in that phishing campaign to find out where we stand, so we can build acceptable use policies and put data loss prevention in place and things of that nature. That's where we're at here in tier 2. We have controls in place. We might have even a security group in play, but we're getting there. We're doing much better than we were when we're at a partial level where we're very reactive. We're a little bit more proactive here, and so and we're proactive in some ways, but maybe reactive in other ways. So those are all things that we need to think about here when we think about the tier two. Tier three, now we're getting somewhere in terms of our risk posture and our cyber resilience. These are repeatable organizations. We have the structured and orderly risk management strategy and process and policies and procedures are in place. We have the programs. We have participation across the organization. We've built the culture. The culture is there. The foundation is there from a cultural aspect and a cultural approach. So we don't have things to worry about at that point, in terms of resources and costs. We've got everything in a very good state, and this might be where we want to be, where we're comfortable. We could get comfortable here. We can continue to keep those processes, those policies, those procedures all in place and monitored, and maintain our repeatable structure as it is today. This is very valid. We've got a focus on continuous improvement. We've got the ability to respond to threats and vulnerabilities and emerging threats and vulnerabilities through our risk register, through our threat intelligence capabilities, through the training that we've provided for our users. We feel our risk posture is in a very good place. But we still could improve. We still could get to another level, which is tier 4. And tier 4 is adaptive organizations. This is what is seen as the highest level. This is the very this is where we've got automation. We've got a strive for excellence where we try to stay ahead of the curve, stay out in front of emerging threats and use emerging technologies like AI, chat GPT, machine learning processes for responding to and addressing the threats. We're at the bleeding edge. We are adopting and adapting to everything that changes as it changes, if not before it changes. And that's really the difference between adaptive and repeatable. Repeatable, we have everything in place and we're looking to be better, but we might not look to be better until maybe a threat is potentially realized that gets us maybe in a little bit of trouble. We've got to take our incident response, initiate our incident response plan and things like that. So those are all things that we need to consider there as well. So those are all the things in the cases that we want to think about in terms of those getting to that adaptive tier. Like I said, not every organization has. This is going to be very expensive to to be at this tier. A consistent expense because you are putting a lot of resources, both personnel and financial resources, into research and development, into being a part of subject matter expert groups, threat intelligence groups, all of those things within your organization. So there's a lot involved in this, a lot of buy-in. We are the gold standard in organization if we're doing this. And that's really what it comes down to. Like I said, if you're at the repeatable level, you are probably much better off than many of the organizations out there, because you've got that strategies in place, the action plan to address risks is in place, the policies are in place that everybody adheres to, all of the awareness trainings being done, and the organization, the culture is risk aware, and you are also looking at continuous improvement and continuously monitoring the validity of all of that. That is tier 3. That's repeatable. Tier 4 is we want to be ahead. We don't just want to be proactive in our policies and our culture. we want to be bleeding edge. We want to be the best of the best. That's really what tier, and we want to adapt. We want to adopt very quickly. That's really what that comes down to. So how do we evaluate and how do we assess, our organization and our organizational controls to that level that we need to be to move from tier to tier to tier. So when we think about a lot of this and we think about the process, we want to think about the three dimensions of risk management of managing the risk, the process of risk management, integrating that risk management program, and also getting a level of external participation. Risk is something that we all take on, right? So though it's not it's I always say that risk is something that that the organization, the executives and the heads of an organization advocate for and kind of dictate that culture, being a part of your organization, but it is executed by everybody in the organization. So that process, the integration of risk management programs across all departments within the organization, is just not an IT thing. And again, external participation, whether it's external outside of the IT department, or it's external in terms of our supply chain, our partners, our consultants, our managed service providers, our software and solution providers, all participate in risk management because they all fall within our areas of risk. And so we can look again, risk, the cybersecurity framework as well as the risk management framework are frameworks. So they aren't dictating or mandating necessarily any frameworks for maturity or maturity models. They're just saying what tier are you? And the tiers aren't necessarily maturity models themselves, even though I've presented them that way. The cybersecurity framework does not present them that way. What they do though is say, okay, these tiers uh, also can be aligned with the various maturity models. So we got the CMMC and the CMMI maturity levels here that you can use, and these are like certification level maturity models that you can get certified on and build kind of a roadmap for growth that aligns with our implementation tiers to being a cyber resilient organization. So strategies for moving in between the tiers. We're going to look at a 5-step process here, and that's probably where we'll end things here today. So when we're thinking about continuous improvement, continuous monitoring, getting to that repeatable phase, we won't go. We kind of hit on the adaptive level of tier 3, or tier 4. But if we think about getting at least a tier 3, we ultimately have to have a continuous improvement process, and we need to understand what our goals are, what our rules, roles, and essentially our RACI, who's responsible, accountable, informed, and communicated with as we go through our process. But first and foremost, we need to assess where we are. We need to know where we are. And so assessing where we are, then we can determine our goals and kind of get to that continuous, that's really our entry point to the continuous improvement process. First and foremost is, where are we? And then we can determine goals of where do we want to go. Okay, so that's the first aspect of things. What is our target? Again, where do we want to go? Once we assess where we are, we can then determine where we want to go. Then we can then determine the goals, develop our action plan, and things like that within that process. So developing that plan is step 3. So we assess where we're at. We look at, okay, how do we look at risk here today? We evaluate where, what tier we are at, and like I said, it should be fairly somewhat easy to take that to understand that and to find out where we are, because the cybersecurity framework defines that pretty well. Whether you're a partial, a risk aware, risk informed, a repeatable, or an adaptive tiered organization should be pretty understandable. So once we have that, once we assess that and we determine, okay, we're at a tier 1 or we're at a tier 2, our goal is to get to a tier 3, then we can develop a plan. And like I said, we'll talk about the risk management action plan in 3 weeks when we circle back into cyber resilience. But that plan is something that, okay, we don't necessarily want to look at, and it's not maybe feasible to look at our plan if we're at tier 1, our plan probably isn't realistic to be at tier 3 by the end of the year. Maybe it is if we're throwing a lot of resources at it, financially and personnel wise. Maybe we can get there. But let's be realistic in our plan and understand what we have in terms of our resources and everything like that. And so, like I said, when we develop an action plan, that's a very key aspect to prioritizing our risk and understand where we're going in the next 12 months. So once we develop that plan and we've got agreement on that plan, we've got everybody understanding what that plan is, then we can implement that plan. So again, the risk management action plan does a very good job of this, of understanding where we are, where we want to go. Excuse me. What our top risks are, so that we can build a plan to actionable plan on that and implement that plan. And then the final thing is monitoring and adjusting. Okay. So there's a continuous communication aspect to all of that to continue to move along, monitor and adjust. Again, continuous improvement. What, you think about even, any kind of process, any kind of plan, procedure you should have a aspect of testing that plan and an aspect of monitoring and adjusting accordingly if that plan does not meet your needs, and or if you find gaps when you execute that plan or when you test that plan. You look at what's taking place. You can't adjust something that you aren't monitoring, that you aren't watching and keeping track of. Just like when I talk about threat, and when I talk about activity monitoring and monitoring for threats, if you don't have monitoring on, if you're not watching logs and understanding potential activity that's taking place, you can't respond to an adverse activity that you don't know ever happened. It's the same thing with any kind of plan or process. Continuous improvement requires that monitoring. The last and needs profiles is a good way to look at this. So if you go back to the cybersecurity framework and what we talked about a few weeks ago, and go back and look at that video, I recommend you take a look at the cybersecurity framework and the functions, categories, and subcategories that we went through in that video, because from that we can look at each of those subcategories, or what we can call controls and those outcomes, and we can look at our profile and how we address each of them, and which ones are going to be the important, the ones that we prioritize. We need to set our priorities before we can develop and implement a plan. We need to assess what we have in place and assess what our priorities are within there. So that's where we can get that alignment in turn. And again, I can't speak to this enough around how The cybersecurity framework doesn't look specifically at, oh, I'm going to implement a firewall or I'm going to implement AES 256 encryption. It does look at, I'm going to encrypt things at rest, when we talk about data protection, but it does not tell us exactly how, but it tells us the what. So then hopefully we can then build business requirements that explain the why to get those requirements prioritized. And that's really what it all comes down to. Well, what we need to do and how we need to do it is exactly that. And that's what these needs profiles are going to do. We have essentially a bunch of documents. We look at those, we determine what categories and subcategories are necessary to our organization. What are within our scope for our organization specifically. We can then build the profiles around that, and from those profiles, we can then prioritize where we want to go. Again, there's some spider charts that we can, spider web charts that we can create and things like that to show where our targets lie. And that's really what it comes down to. Like I said, so how do I use that and help that to increase our tier? So again, the targeted profiles are going to give us a gap analysis, really. If we're looking at all those categories and subcategories that we talked about, 3 weeks ago, we can look at those and prioritize accordingly to build those threats. And here's a look at that profile a little bit more in terms of, what our organizational requirements are, where they fall within that framework core. So again, a little bit more around the framework, the cybersecurity framework, and then what categories, subcategories or activities play into that. And then we establish what that looks like in terms of our goals to where we want to go in terms of being cyber resilient, and then what metrics we're going to measure that on is all really what it comes down to. And that's really just kind of really a summary of this document. We go through this document much more in the cyber resilience fundamentals course. I mentioned this already before. As we build and determine what tier we are in terms of cyber resilience and where we want to be in terms of cybersecurity posture and maturity, it all falls down to our organizational strategy. What is the organization's strategy, and what is the organization's mission, and what is the strategy towards risk and being risk aware to our organization? How does it align to our mission and business processes? So again, maintaining a continuity of business and continuity of operations and business continuity to our critical systems is going to be key aspect to our risk management strategy. So from an information system and information management perspective, we need to make sure that those align, that mission, that business, those critical systems, and how we're addressing risk towards them is going to be more important than the non-critical systems. So we need to make sure that those are aligned. And again, it's a continuous process. The information system management, the security management, all is looking towards how to align our business case for resources and prioritize our risks accordingly. So then we can build processes and procedures that then feed down to the rest of the organization. Executive management are going to be our advocates from security and risk professional perspective, and cyber resiliency. If we get buy-in at the organizational level where they are aligned in that mission and advocating for that mission of risk awareness, of being repeatable, being tier 3, or even putting the financial backing into the adaptive tier, then the rest of the organization can then easily execute it, because if it's not advocated at the top, it's going to be much more difficult to execute from a cyber resilience professional perspective. again, I've spoken about this already a little bit around which tier is right for you. So, it is the cost and effort that into play in an awful lot of ways. And I was teaching a risk management foundations course this week, and that was one of the comments that came out is getting the business to understand where to spend money is the important aspect. It's our ability as risk and cyber resilience professionals to explain to the business why it's worth it to spend that money. Okay, because if we can't tell them, can't make them understand why it's worth it to spend the money, how if they don't spend the money it's going to be painful to them, that becomes even more difficult. So becomes a much more difficult sell. So we want to make sure we're trying to keep this a open conversation, and one that it's being spun appropriately on how it's going to affect the business. And again, the organization needs to determine what tier they want to be. Where do they want to fall? So presenting that to them of, hey, we've done an initial assessment, and we're at a risk informed tier in terms of cyber resilience and the cybersecurity framework. um, we feel as security professionals, risk professionals, cybersecurity professionals, that it would be best to be at a tier 3 level. And these are the risks that we have, that and the gaps that we have that we need to work toward to get ourselves to that tier. Okay, that is everything for today. If you have any questions, feel free to put those questions in the chat. Here's a QR code. I'm trying to remember what the QR code is for. Let me scan it real quick and just I'll let you know. I think this just goes to, what does this go to here today? This goes to our website. Yeah, it's just a QR code to the website. Here on the website, you can look at our catalog, look at our upcoming classes as well. We've got a course schedule on there, so feel free to scan the QR code. It goes right to captainhyperscaler.com to look for what we've got. Like I said, a lot of what you're hearing in these Cyber Foundation Fridays align with some of the courses that I provide through Accolade. That, like I said, is kind of that very good foundational practitioner level courses that you can then build upon to getting to that cybersecurity management executive level type of CISO thinking that like the CSIM and the CRISC and the CISA and the CGIT provide you with. So as I said, skilling up like a superhero starts with your origin story. Cyber Foundation Fridays gives you a little bit of that origin foundation, and then take one of our Accolade courses to again start building that repetitive understanding around cyber resilience and risk management and things like that that might help you, that should help you expand and grow your career in cybersecurity. I just did a talk this past week on an info session for ISC2. As I said, I'm an ISC2 instructor as well. Captain Hyperscaler doesn't teach ISC2 courses. We teach ISACA courses, but very similar in depth and breadth in a lot of ways. But we were talking about this certified in cybersecurity, which is again another origin story, so to speak. And we were talking about a lot about careers and certification stacking as you build your way into a certain career. And one of the things that Accolade's courses really do, as well as that ISC2 certified in cybersecurity, is start that tier. The origin story is where you start that foundation. It's like building a house. I actually mentioned this during the talk. You're building a house. You start with a strong foundation, and there's lots of ways to build a strong foundation through various training. Accolade has done a very good job with their cyber resilience courses. Then also their the risk management courses, which or risk management certifications, which are still in beta, and I'm doing training around them, as well as AI security, which the foundations course just went into beta October 1st. Great course to understand AI security and importance around AI security. Then there's a practitioner course that'll be, I think it's going into beta in January, and I'm doing the class for that in December. So build on those, and then go into go into other areas. The ISC2 certified in cybersecurity is a very good course to get you started, and you can Google 1 million certified in cybersecurity, and you can get free on-demand training and a voucher for exams on that. Reach out to me. I can help you get a voucher for the Accolade. And if you take one of my courses in Accolade, I will provide you with a voucher. So those are all things that that we provide, as well as, again, there's some very good Microsoft and CompTIA courses that we can teach in terms of Cloud Plus within CompTIA, which is vendor independent. There are good, the Azure fundamentals, the security fundamentals, the Microsoft 365 fundamentals, the AWS practitioner courses, as well as there's AI practitioner courses now. Those are all very helpful for building that foundational understanding. Then you can go to the more intermediate and executive, expert level courses that Asaka has, and IDLE and ISC2 and all those areas as well. EC Council, you can do some more technical, if you want to go a more technical perspective, you can use EC Council, which we're also a training organization for as well. So again, thank you very much for attending these Cyber Foundation Fridays. Like I said, we weren't going to go probably as long today, or closing in close to an hour, but hopefully this information was helpful to you in understanding, the cyber resilience tiers, and understanding how you can kind of grade your organization accordingly to find out how you become a much more cyber resilient organization. So hope to see you next week. We have other courses coming up. Let me pull up, forgot to put those into this particular slide deck. My apologies, but I can find one really quick to show you from one of the previous. All right, so yeah, here we go. So coming up, we have next week we will be doing, we're here in implementation tiers. Next week we'll be talking about risk analysis and treatment in next week's training. Then we're going to go into threat detection with AI, and then search through. Like I said, I'm going to change this cyber resilience profiles actually to building a risk management action plan. I think will be a better session. We talked about risk profiles a little bit today, so that one's going to change a little bit, but we'll be back to the cybersecurity framework with the cyber resilience on November 1st. And these will continue to go until November 15th. Every Friday. Times change a little bit here and there, just based on my availability to present to you. But definitely look forward to seeing everybody again next week. Again, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to me on social media, on LinkedIn, and continue to check something here. Hold on. Continue to to request any information that you may need, or anything that you may want to address. Here's our schedule of courses that are coming up. We just finished delivering the risk management foundations this week. Actually do have that class now up on Udemy, so you can look up Accolade courses, and there are a couple of courses on there that I've developed in Udemy. Next week I have AI security foundations. Again, 9 hours of instruction over 3 days, 3 3-hour days. So So I welcome you to and reach out to me. We are generally offering it for $250. I'm actually offering a $50 discount on these courses for Cyber Awareness Month of October. We have the cyber resilience courses coming later this month in early November as well. So, and I'll give you that $50 discount even for the November courses if you register for them in October. So, so keep that in mind and feel free to reach out and I'll get you that special link to pay and register for these courses. So, thanks again, everybody. Appreciate you joining me in these Cyber Foundation Fridays. Hope to see you in other ones and hope to see you in a instructor-led course here in the future. Otherwise, keep skilling up like